My speech is going to be on viruses and why they remain with us. How many of you enjoy watching horror movies? How many have watched a horror movie where you watch a movie and there are aliens that invade the earth, and thankfully there's a really good hero who happens to kill all the aliens and rescues everyone? Very common flaw of a movie. What I find really disheartening is after there's a victory and people go back to relaxing and enjoying the rest of their lives and their time, we see one little alien wandering around. That makes me feel like there is no future, or there is no victory in that. And that is the case with viruses. A lot of times the viruses that we tend to see have been there before, and they end up coming back after they have mutated in a form that is difficult and harder to treat. Why do viruses remain with us, and why are they so difficult to find a cure for? The first thing I would want to say is that they have the ability to mutate. This makes it very hard to get the right kind of treatment. Think about the flu vaccine. I can recall back in 2009, we happened to have a few H1N1 patients, most of them really young. I remember one 21-year-old young man, very healthy. Unfortunately, because it took so long to get a treatment and to get the right kind of medication, he ended up passing away, which was the same case as for 3 other patients that we had. It was very sad, and it's hard to imagine that people would actually die from the flu in this day and age. Another example I would have to cite is the Ebola virus. This is not new, as many of you probably have heard about Ebola. It's been in the news, unfortunately not spoken of as much anymore, but the first outbreak was back in 1990s. Not a lot of people talked about it, and to my surprise, some people heard of it the very first time in 2014, 2015. But it happens only to be a different strain, but it is the same kind of virus that we could have possibly got a treatment for. So my point number 2 would be the conspiracy theory. A lot of people have been led to believe that getting vaccination can bring a lot of sequelae of a lot of unwanted negative effects. For example, autism. I have seen, unfortunately, my best friend has a now 4-year-old son that is not vaccinated because of that thought. And that puts at risk many other children who are not enough to be vaccinated, or may come from families that parents have chosen not to vaccinate, and that can cause another outbreak, be it measles, which has happened in the recent past, be it another virus. Hopefully that will not be the case. Point number 3, we fear what we do not know. As human beings, the things that we are uncertain of or are unsure of are the things that we tend not to want to associate, which is not a good approach when it comes to treating and dealing with viruses. An example that I would take is my place of work at Highland Hospital. For some reason, we were given an option to volunteer to take care of Ebola patients, which is not usually the case. You get the patient that you get. If you say no, you go home. But with Ebola patients, we ended up having, on my shifts, just 2 nurses. So if anything ever happens, it's going to be myself and someone else. And people are afraid to deal with it. They are afraid of acquiring the illness or transmission. Another example of fear would be fear for research. As you may have heard, with Ebola patients that pass away, with medical research, a lot of times hospitals will even request people to donate their bodies for medical research. This has not been the case for illnesses that people fear. What happens is that the cadavers are actually burned before researchers have an opportunity to do any kind of research, which will be beneficial in the future if we are to get a cure for viruses. My other point would be considering more viruses to be third world problems. The thing is, as long as we live in the same globe, we interact at one level or another. It's unavoidable. So an illness that will be in a third world country at some point, unfortunately, will end up in a first world country. And so being proactive and dealing with that would actually save the citizens of these first world countries, because it's looking ahead and planning ahead so that they end up protecting their citizens. So to sum it up, I would say that I hope that it's not a conspiracy of circumstances that there has been no talk of a vaccine, as was the hope when all this started. It's been very quiet, and we usually have monthly meetings to help prepare ourselves in case we ever had a very highly communicable
Visiting hours
patient.
for adult services are over in 10 minutes. Thank you for your cooperation.
And the last meeting that we had for this month, I happened to be the only one that showed up to attend for the preparation, because it's no longer a threat and it seems like it's out of people's minds at this point. The other thing I would say is that we do not forget the things that will cause us anguish in the future. If we plan ahead, then we do not have to deal with fear, and hopefully we will not have to lose lives in the end. Thank you.